in an American.
Hi, welcome to episode 20 of That Board Game Show podcast. I'm Sonja Wood, and again I have with me today my son.
Hello.
There he is, there's James. And we're going to chat to you today about some things like we do here on this podcast channel.
Some board game things.
Board game things. And what's right at the top of the list for today's podcast is it happens to be the 10th of October.
2023.
Which means, what was last weekend?
Essen SPIEL. Or
Yep.
SPIEL Essen.
And where
SPIEL in Essen.
SPIEL in Essen. And where were we?
Not in Essen.
Not in Essen. In actual fact, we looked very seriously at maybe trying to attend this year's Essen because it's on the bucket list. But anyway,
the
we
board game
didn't.
bucket list.
We didn't go. We weighed up all the odds. I'm sure there's quite a number of thousands of people that weigh it all up and they want to go, but then they end up not going because they get to the same conclusion that we did. Well, our conclusion was specifically clear in the fact that it was going to cost tens of thousands of rands for us to go. And we thought, no, let's just wait a bit. We don't have to go this year. Besides, the other confirming factor was our passports weren't all up to date either.
Nope. They expired in 2020 and we haven't bothered renewing them since.
Yeah, well, we all know what happened in 2020. But also, my husband Greg needed to renew his passport. He decided he'll give it a test drive and see what happens. And here in South Africa, renewing your passport is not for sissies. You have to have a lot of time and patience and start support groups. So anyway, yeah, he got his passport renewal eventually. But after watching that experience, we thought, okay, no, we're going to need quite a bit of time before making plans to go to Essen. But instead of going physically, we attended Essen in our lounge here in South Africa, which I must say I rather enjoyed because we could cuddle up under a blankie and we could watch the live streams. Thank you to those people that do live streams for Essen. I really, really appreciate the effort and the time put into that because I know it's no small thing. And I want you to know that it is greatly appreciated because we enjoyed it. We really got a feel. I mean, it's not the same, obviously, but what was your experience of attending it virtually?
Really good. I'm very grateful to the whole team at CGE who had their daily streams going from their Twitch channel. And then Spiel themselves had their own live stream happening, which was 90% in German. So we were just looking.
We were observers and we were listening, waiting. The next guy they interview might be English.
Occasional English word popped through and we could kind of figure out what was going on.
But they also interviewed the odd English-speaking person. And
so the hosts were fortunately fluent in both English and German. So when they were interviewing an American showing off their game, they could converse in English. So that was a lot of fun. And yeah, it was really nice being able to virtually attend and at least get see the sights and sounds and things. And sure, we couldn't be there in person, and maybe one day we will, but
perhaps.
Until then, thank you to
Just
everyone
hoping.
who does live streams and vlogs and, watching all the Dice Tower vlogs and Board Gaming Ramblings doing their daily vlog updates. And
their silly 1:15 in the morning live stream. No, but really, we do appreciate it. We don't even know how to tell you how much because when I was sitting here in South Africa watching, I was thinking, these guys don't even know, like the SPIEL presenters, those two guys that were going around. I was just thinking, wow, I wonder if they can ever know how much it means to us to be able to sit here and actually experience the convention as much as we felt we were. So thank you so much to all of you that helped us to not feel too sadly about not being able to attend. In fact, last year we did that Gen Con weekend. Remember, that was when Gen Con was on. I know this is Essen SPIEL, but we did a little podcast about our Gen Con because we had a weekend playing board games because we couldn't be at Gen Con. So that's not anything to complain about, having a weekend to play board games. Talking of which, let's chat about the board game we played the other day, Way of the Panda. Well, what I want to tell everybody about Way of the Panda is something that is memorable to me, because I like telling the stories about those things. And that is when we got this game, Way of the Panda, it's got the most beautiful miniatures in it. Nice little chunky pandas that are all dressed up. And so we went away for a weekend. I think it might have been as much as a week. Maybe just a weekend. I don't remember.
I think it was
exactly.
about a week.
And we took our paint kit with us, and we sat at the table of the place where we were staying, and we painted minis. And when we had tired of painting minis, we played a game. Remember, Simon came and he brought Camel up, I think, that weekend. We played
so,
Camel.
yeah.
But anyway, back to the miniature painting. We're not big miniature painting people, but we have found that painting miniatures while listening to an audiobook is a very nice activity. In fact, Jamie paints miniatures because he's got a very steady hand and he paints these really, really minute details and he does an excellent job of it. And I build a puzzle, a really, really big puzzle, a very challenging puzzle, and we listen to an audiobook.
Yeah, currently we're listening to the Lord of the Rings trilogy narrated by Andy Serkis.
It is.
Which is rather thematically appropriate when you're painting fantasy miniatures.
Yeah. So that's what we did with Way of the Panda miniatures. We painted them. And so now when we go to play Way of the Panda, we've got these nice little painted minis.
And what those minis do is represent your various panda champions that are going around the board. So Way of the Panda is published by Simon or Camon. I'm not sure which pronunciation they prefer these days.
They can tell us sometime.
Previously
somehow.
Cool Mini or Not, which they have abbreviated. And designed by Andrea Menini, Walter Obert, and Alberto Vendramini. And it's basically a worker placement / area control type game. So you've got two boards. You've got a big map board, and then you've got another board down the side, which is your worker placement area. And it's got a really interesting worker placement system, whereby it's basically got this grid of your worker placement actions that you can do. And it's got rows and it's got columns. And if you put one of your tiny panda worker meeples on a worker placement spot, you then can't place subsequent workers to the left or above that worker. So it's the sort of diminishing options as you go. So as the turn progresses, you have less and less and less options you can choose from.
You also have on the grid, basically.
Yeah. And you have limited action points that you can use between actions, and then all of that is driving this map board area where the theme is that each player is controlling a different panda clan, and you are reclaiming your homeland from the evil human ninjas.
And there's lots of ninjas on the road.
Yeah, so you have to traverse the roads and clear out the ninjas to then rebuild the villages and cities. And
then you build a gate and a marketplace, and what's that tall one called? The little mini
pagoda.
And you build a pagoda, and then when you build those three, you put them onto the city tile.
You get a city base, and then you can build those three again, and then that becomes a capital. And then basically, when you build a building, you get points for the building you build, and then you also get points for any panda onlookers from your opponents, which is quite clever, I think. Because basically you're all moving around and clearing the paths, and when you do so, you're leaving behind guards.
Your panda guards.
And as you do so, you leave them on the board and you put little tokens down. And then when somebody else comes into that village to build a building, they get more points if there are more panda guards from other players than their own. So you're sort of incentivized to move around and a lot more than just hiving off in your own little corner.
And I must say, I always enjoy a game where I can build little villages, and I leave the other things up to Jamie mostly when we're playing a game, when it comes to keeping the ninjas at bay and so on. But I do that as well. But anyway, the thing that I like about the Way of the Panda, there's a lot of things I like about it. The design, the art, the minis, the mechanic, all those things. It's just tick, tick, tick for me. I really, really enjoy it. So we enjoyed that game recently.
It is not as good with 2 players, I don't think. I think I've only played it once or twice with more, because we typically just play 2-player games. But I could see it singing a lot more with more players, because I think that element of the way you score points based on the work other players have done, I can see that being a lot more dynamic and a lot more interesting with a lot more players at the table. Whereas with 2 players, it's a little bit more sort of deterministic. So it's a good game with 2 players, but I think it could be a much better game with more.
I'm quite happy with it as 2, as you know. I like building my little corner, carrying on. We watched a video recently of a game that we are playing this coming weekend called Eclipse.
Yeah, Eclipse Second Dawn for the Galaxy.
And there was the guy that was showing us how to play it was saying, if you don't want to get in other people's way, you can actually just go off, west or south or north or east.
Yeah, it's a big sprawling 4X game. So that's for explore, expand, exploit, and exterminate. And if you don't want to exterminate or be exterminated,
go exploring.
Then you can explore in the opposite direction to everyone else and hope that they leave you alone.
That's what I'll be doing. So I'm looking forward to the fact that they've got that option in Eclipse, because it means that I can enjoy it.
Yeah.
Because I just don't enjoy the battle type of games. Some people do. I don't particularly enjoy those kinds.
Yeah, we're not exactly war gamers.
No, we're not.
It's not our shtick. Although you speak about not liking war games, and the other game we played this weekend was the Lord of the Rings board game, designed by Rainer Knizia.
Yes, but that is a cooperative one, and we were being Frodo and Sam.
And in this game, designed by the good Dr. Rainer Knizia, one of his hundreds of designs, it's actually one of the earliest co-op games that really made cooperative gaming popular. I think it came out in like 2000.
What's it called? The Lord of the Rings, the board game?
I think it's just The Lord of the Rings.
Oh, okay, just that on its own. Because there's quite a few versions of The Lord of the Rings.
And this one's the Silver Line edition, published by Fantasy Flight Games, that we picked up on a second-hand sale somewhere. Why someone was getting rid of it, I will never know. But anyway, it's
so beautiful.
It's got these five boards. So one board is like the tracker, and it's got like this panoramic shot that goes from the Shire all the way up to Mordor. And you're moving your little token along for the different areas. So you start in Bag End, and then you move to Rivendell, and then you go from Rivendell to Moria, and then from Moria to Lothlorien, Lothlorien to Helm's Deep, Helm's Deep to Shelob's Lair, and then on to Mordor. And as you progress, you're doing so each of those locations is represented by a board. And so you're getting... It's basically a sort of card-driven game, so you're playing cards on your turn, and you've got grey cards and brown cards, and you can play one of each color. So you can basically just play one card to progress on one of the tracks, or you can play one grey and one brown card to progress further along the various tracks. And you're basically just trying to play symbols from the cards in your hand to match the tracks that you're trying to move along on the different boards to get to the end of each board without your ring bearer character getting to the same space as the Sauron represented.
Yes, because Sauron is moving closer and closer to Frodo and Sam.
So on your main board, you've got this corruption track, and the hobbits start on one end of it, and Sauron starts on the other, and the two slowly creep closer and closer and closer and closer together.
And the artwork is so incredible on these boards. And
the art is by John Howe.
Yeah.
Who did a lot of the art and concept art for the Lord of the Rings movies.
So I just enjoy being the adventurer in the game. You know, I'm normally Sam and you're normally Frodo. And of course you can be more players than that, but because there's just the two of us.
When you play 2-player, you always play as Sam and Frodo. And then I think it plays up to 5. So you've got Sam, Frodo, Merry, Pippin, and Fatty Bolger. the one and only time he's managed to make an appearance outside of the books.
Oh, yeah, that's a point. So that's what we did as well. We played that Lord of the Rings game recently. And What other games have we played recently?
What did we play? We played Seven Bridges because we were playing easy, quiet roll and write games whilst watching SPIEL live streams.
That's true.
So we played a few rounds of Seven Bridges. We played Meadow over the weekend. Again, a nice, quiet, thinky game to have a live stream playing in the background with.
And the artwork is enough just to sit and gaze at and gaze at. Yeah. Well, as we've said a couple of times, you and I just play games, just the two of us. But we are looking forward to this weekend where we have our little group coming to play Eclipse. And it's interesting to us that most of the time we're quite comfortable with just the two of us playing. And then we have these weekends here and there where we play with the group. I'm just wondering what other people's general preferences. I suppose that's a hard question because there's
I think it varies dramatically.
Yeah.
Some people only like playing with a big group and some people only like playing solo.
So I was just wondering, with these podcasts, is there a place for someone to put a comment?
Yeah, on Spotify where we host these, they've got a Q&A section at the end, so we can put a little question and people can
I'm curious
field their answers into it.
Yeah, I'm curious to hear from people. You know, what is their preferred mode of playing? Do they like big groups or small groups? Because the thing that I'm picking up, and I don't know if I've got this right or not, but small groups and 2-player or 3-player or 4-player definitely seems to be the majority. That's what I'm gathering, and I'm just wondering if that is actually a fact. But that's what I'm picking up, that seems to be.
It might just be that we're more exposed to that because of the types of games we investigate and look into. I think also just logistically, it makes sense, you know, that it's easier, practically speaking, to play games with two people if you're, you know, a family or a couple. Or
that's probably what makes something special about Essen and these board game conventions is that you can play with a bigger group and you can play with strangers and you make friends and all that. Whereas,
yeah, and you can also play the types of games that you don't otherwise. I mean, we were listening to one of the daily vlog catch-up things with Paul Grogan from Gaming Rules, and he mentioned that the guy that he was roommating with at their hotel was just playing loads and loads and loads and loads of like big, crunchy, heavy Euro games, like Terraforming Mars and Voidfall and Terra Mystica and all these crunchy, complicated games because he just doesn't get to play those with his normal gaming group because they tend towards
the
lighter, more fun,
quick.
King Domino and, code names and the more quick, simple, fun types of games. So he goes to Essen and he just plays and plays and plays and plays all these complicated games because he has people to play them with.
I think we're very spoilt in our variety that we've got because we've got these really light, easy, quick filler games all the way to the heavier games. In fact, we're slowly collecting heavier and heavier games because I don't mean heavier in weight. I mean...
Well, that too.
Yeah, that too. Yeah, they sort of come together. Because we have been more sort of in the middle and now we're veering towards the heavier games. Again, that makes me curious as to people who are listening to the podcast. I think it might be the development of the hobby. As you go deeper into the hobby, the kinds of games you play changes, obviously. So I'm also curious to hear what other people...
I think people also just go through phases, like some people, I think, go through a phase where they love heavy games. And then it might be that you either get tired of that or maybe something in your life changes and you just don't have the mental space for keeping all those crunchy rules in your head.
And you just want nice light games for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's another cue for the Q&A section at the end of this podcast.
I really would like to hear how other people's experiences, because we only know from what we consume versus via the internet, via YouTube and watching different channels and seeing different people playing games in their groups. But I am picking up this pattern, I think, whereby, as you say, maybe it's just what we're exposed to, whereby people are playing in smaller groups. But as you say, it could just be a logistical thing.
And we're coming out of the pandemic season. So I think that also played into it a lot. I think so 2-player and solo gaming just boomed during that period because that's what people could play. You know, they weren't able to get together in big groups.
Talking of solo playing, what have you played solo recently? Because that's something you enjoy doing. You never thought you would, but you do go and play solo.
I played Tiny Epic Galaxies the other night. Decided to just whip that out at 11 o'clock at night because I wasn't ready to go to bed and I felt like playing something. So I've got a video for that on the channel if you're interested to see how the solo play works.
And you haven't done Way of the Panda on the channel, hey?
No. That does not have solo play.
Yeah, but I was just wondering if you'd done a video. You've been mostly doing solo play videos.
Pretty much, my videos that I do are pretty much focused on solo play, yeah.
If you have a guest, it could be something different. Sometimes we get a guest into the studio, guests, and we say, how about doing a playthrough for us? And then they sit down and do a playthrough. Yeah, but mostly you've got a solo dedicated videos. What is your most recent solo video that you've done?
At the time of this podcast going live, probably the next episode 14, 15, 16, somewhere there of the Rolling Realms Solitaire Mini Golf series.
That's been amazing. I've been watching it because Jamie does a video and then I just watch it, proof it as it were, you know. And you've done all 18 now, but I think the last one goes up in November sometime.
Yeah.
So we're recording this at the beginning of October. But those Rolling Realms mini golf series has been really interesting.
It's been a lot of fun to do the same game over and over and over for multiple videos. And yeah, it gives quite a good overview of all the different realms in the game. So even if you're not playing it solo, you know, you can jump in. I've put in the description of each of the videos what realms are played in it. So if you're interested to just see how a specific realm works, you can jump into that video.
Like if somebody wants to see how viticulture, that realm, or between two castles.
Or between two castles, or. Yeah, I've only been going through the core box, so I've only played the realms that are in the base game, which are all Stonemaier Games spin-offs. They have since been releasing loads of promos for Rolling Realms, which have been adding realm cards for other publishers' games as well. So I think there's one for Terra Mystica, there's others. That's the one that springs to mind. But there's quite a lot, and they keep coming out with more.
Well, do put the mini golf series also in the show notes or whatever it is.
I'll put a link to the playlist in the show notes.
You know, talking about playing a game multiple times like you've been doing with mini golf Rolling Realms, we haven't forgotten about our shelves of ambition. And so we are chipping away on our shelves of ambition, which we've spoken about that quite a bit on these podcasts, as in the benefit of that and how we have been finding a lot of value of going through the games multiple times and not just having 1 or 2 or 3 plays of a particular game, but we go between 5 and 10. And the shelves of ambition was get all our games up to 10 plays. That was quite an ambitious ambition, which we've been working at, and we're on October. And we actually think we might just be at a good place by the end of the year with regard to having...
Yeah, the list is getting shorter.
Yeah, and but some games we said, okay, we're going to play this one up to 10, and we got to 8 and said, you know what, that's enough. We won't play that one anymore because we've really had enough of that particular game. 8 times was enough plays of that. It wasn't a game that we want to just keep going back to. So it's interesting what we've learned from our shelves of ambition playing.
Something else we've started taking note of is because of tracking everything like a true nerd. I can see the average play time and the total time spent playing a game. So that's a metric we've sort of started to pay more attention to, is not just how many times have we played a game, but how much time have we spent playing.
How many hours spent playing Seventh Continent, for example. I don't
60 plus.
60 plus hours on one game.
So far.
So, yeah, and another game, as you say, we might have played it 5 times, but it might have taken 17 hours of time playing it. So that we go. We've given that game a lot of time, and we don't need to just keep playing it and playing it for the sake of getting it to 10 plays. So we're getting a bit more selective now with whether we want to take it up to 10 or not. But it is going well, and I'm not going to be sorry for our 2023 Shells of Ambition mission. It's helped us through the year to not be tempted to all the other nice new. I don't know if anybody else out there. I've got lots of questions for people out there now because my other one is, are other people like us who we always want to get the next game that we see, go, oh, that one's interesting. The fact that we've already got a few hundred doesn't seem to influence us and stopping us from wanting to get a few hundred more. But
always want the new shiny. Well, I mean, we have just come out of SPIEL week, so
now we're even more tempted.
So all the new exciting games have been announced and released and spoken about, and reviews will be coming out, and
and we'll start making our list. I want to. We want that one list. Yeah. Okay. Well, I am looking forward to our weekend of Eclipse. I'm sure our next podcast we'll be able to tell everybody about how that experience was. And so I'm going to go off and make a cup of tea now because it's tea time. And I want to say thank you to everybody for listening. And look forward to sharing with you in our next podcast.
And if you enjoyed this episode, we would greatly appreciate it if you'd head over to our Patreon page, patreon.com/thatboardgameshow, where you can support the show and get access to behind-the-scenes videos and early access to these podcast episodes. Or you can support the show for free by subscribing to the YouTube channel, subscribing to the podcast, giving us a like and a review and all the good things that the algorithms want you to do. And I shall say thank you ever so much for listening, and I hope you enjoyed the show.